Welcome to the Lights Camera Pro podcast, where we interview entertainment pros about their careers and how they became successful in the industry. The secrets to their success here every week. Here's your host, Sean Ventura.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Lights Camera Pro podcast. I'm your host, Sean Ventura, and I just want to say go to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and subscribe, rate, and review. Our guest today is Matt Modderno. He is of the Bleav and Wizards podcast. That's spelled B-L-E-A-V. Bleav and Wizards is part of a network of sports podcasts. He's got a lot of insight about the Wizards, the NBA, the bubble. It's going to be great. Here we go. Sean Ventura here with the Lights Camera Pro podcast. And I'm here with Matt Modderno from the Bleav and Wizards podcast. Hey, Matt.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
So, Matt, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Just getting used to this new norm when we web stream and live stream and all this good stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Everybody's doing it. The Bleav and Wizards podcast, is that part of, I was kind of looking around, is that part of a Bleav network or something?
Yeah, so it's a larger podcast network, the Bleav network. So like you said, B-L-E-A-V, not the traditional spelling of Bleav.
Right.
I guess they try to get a little cute with it. But the general premise is that you pair a host up with an athlete and they try to cover, the goal is to have one show for every professional sports team. So Rick Barry does the Golden State Warriors podcast. Ike Taylor does the Steelers. Obviously, Larry does our does our show. So they got a pretty good amount of stuff. Former Kentucky Wildcat Tony Delk does the Kentucky podcast. So it's a good idea, I think, because you have so many people where it just gives you more credibility, I think, is kind of the big goal.
Right. And what is your experience as far as like people listening? Is it like hundreds of downloads or thousands?
We're still in the hundreds range. Honestly, it sort of depends, on who the guest is. That makes things fluctuate a pretty good amount. So, it might be a couple hundred one week if it's just the two of us, catching people up on some basketball news, or if it's one of Larry's former teammates, we're tripling that, or, it really does kind of depend. And I think the big thing for us is, we really kicked this off, right around when the quarantine started. Our goal originally was to kind of have like a soft launch the second half of the season, get everything together and then have like free agency to work on things and kind of build on the show and grow it organically. But it's just hard to have a podcast where you want to talk about actual gameplay when there's no game. So
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's super difficult. Have you, all right, I'm going to stop asking questions, but I'm going to ask one more. Have you had Wall or Beal on the show?
No, we haven't yet. We were kind of hoping to like build up a little more of a foundational base first before, pulling our big guns out and going to that. So, Larry Hughes, my co-host, is from St. Louis. Brad Beal is also from St. Louis. So pretty easy connection there. And he knows Brad. And Jason Tatum, that plays for the Celtics, is Larry's godson. So I think we'll probably try to get Jason on at some point. But
awesome.
It's been kind of a weird summer for them too. So, it was one of those things where we're trying to wrestle with the right time to kind of bring those guys in.
Right. So can you tell me, because we have a lot of podcasters that are interested in this. Can you tell me, well, I know Bleav, I keep saying Bleav, but it's Bleav actually. Mm-hmm. The network was started at some point, but I'm really just right now interested in you and how you got started, how you got involved with the podcast.
So we've been going since, we started kind of putting this together conceptually in January. And we've been like running shows since March. So still pretty new to this. It was one of those things where some mutual connections I have mentioned that Bleav the podcast network was looking for hosts and trying to fill up certain shows. And, I'm from the DC area originally. The Wizards are my team of preference. I cover the team for a couple different blogs. So it was just one of those things where I have an interest and some background knowledge, and I've been in the locker room and covered the team and stuff like this. So it just made a lot of sense. And then it became kind of who's the right co-host to do it with. And that was sort of the open question for a while. And I have a good friend of mine who's a basketball coach and had mentioned he had, some experience with Larry a decade or maybe almost 2 decades ago at this point. And just, talked about what a nice guy he was. He's personally one of my favorite players to watch on the Wizards. So didn't see him doing a lot of media. So hey, Larry, would you be interested? And, luckily it was a yes.
How do you get together with Larry, and how does that all work? Like, do you guys rehearse beforehand? Because he's not like you. He hasn't done a blog or anything like that. You said he has a camp and he does some other things, but how do you get him in there and get him used to doing this?
We did one dry run, and, I think for us, that's kind of why we wanted to do like sort of a soft launch to this and slowly build up to things. But yeah, he's just been kind of a natural at it, to be honest with you. He's just a well-spoken, articulate dude. He knows the game at such an intricate level that it's just easy for him to talk about it. And it's been kind of a natural fit. And I try to, do a lot of the show prep work to make things as easy on him as I can. And hey, here are the topics. Here are some key questions I think we'll want to hit on. But overall, it's just been really kind of easy. It's flowed pretty well together.
Best Wizard of all time. This is your opinion. It's not Bleacher Report or NBA.com or Larry Hughes. So number 1, John Wall, who I think is a great player, so much fun to watch. Number 2, Michael Jordan. He's one of the, if not the greatest player of all time, but it gets so tricky with these polls. Does it count? Because he was only on the Wizards for 2 years. And then your co-host, Larry Hughes, which you might have to say because he's your co-host.
Are we talking just specifically the Wizards history, or are we counting bullets here too?
Wizards and bullets and the whole thing. Yeah, I know. I saw some other names online that I wasn't familiar with, but if you want to talk about them too, just go ahead.
Yeah, I think Larry will give me a pass here just for duration. John Wall's been a multi-time All-Star for a decade. So of that list, I think you have to say he's the best Wizard of that group. Obviously MJ in his prime is, my personal opinion, the best player ever. So if we're talking who of those guys had the best ceiling, that's obviously but Jordan. But I would say the best player in Washington franchise history is probably Wes Unseld. Just unbelievable post player, rebounder, defender, outlet passer, and took them kind of their only championship in the late 70s. So I think that's probably the consensus answer. But for me in my time, really, I think the peak of Gilbert Arenas would be sort of my answer. That's the Larry Hughes, Gilbert Arenas, Anton Jameson teams. Those are the ones that really got me as into basketball as I am. Just the most fun I've had watching a team.
Awesome. Yeah. And Gilbert Arenas, wasn't he on the Warriors too at one point?
Yeah, it was actually funny. Larry got traded from Philadelphia to Golden State. They drafted Gilbert. They had Jameson as well. Larry left in free agency to go to the Wizards. And then they eventually traded, or Gilbert joined in free agency in Washington as well. And then they later traded for Jameson. So they were all in Golden State together and they weren't very good there. And then fast forward a couple of years in Washington, and they were one of the probably 6-7 best teams in the league.
Very cool. And do you know what the hosting service is for your podcast?
We put our stuff up on Art19.
Oh, what is that? I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's worth a look. It sort of aggregates it to all the major platforms for you. So it's another
I have hosting site, which does that also. I do it to like 14 different platforms, iHeartRadio and Apple and Spotify. But I haven't heard of Arc19 at all in all my research.
Art19, like just ART. It's what some of the Wizards talk and things like that do the NBC hosted podcasts. So they use that. A couple of the other big ones. So I think it's worth a look. It's been good for us. The network sort of sets that stuff up, and it makes it pretty easy on us to just. I go in, put on all the basic info, upload, tag it, all that good stuff.
Yeah. And so I have a couple of questions. One is, are you guys recording in a studio? Are are you recording remote? Well, you're recording remotely now, but before this COVID happened, were you recording in a studio or just in an office or?
So we're each recording individually. I think the majority of our episodes have featured a guest, so it is kind of easier to do that through Zoom, record it as a call, and then I go through and edit it all after. But Larry actually lives full time in St. Louis. I think during a typical year, he's on the road a lot and a lot of appearances and stuff like that. But he does run a youth academy in St. Louis, try to give back to the community there where he's from. So it would be remote most of the time anyway. And then I have my home office and stuff that we can record from.
And you're in DC?
Yeah, I'm in Maryland, but close enough to DC.
Right. And how are you promoting it? Do you have ads? Do you have just like promoting game? Well, there's not games, but would you promote games and like come out to Friday night 2-for-1 tickets or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we'll try to get into is trying to do some actual promotion with the team once there's some things to tie it back to. And, like I've seen it where another podcast has done like, hey, come to G League night at the G League affiliate, and we'll do all the fans could come and hang out and we'll do a meet and greet and stuff like that. I have no idea what that's going to look like even next season. It's just my personal hunch that probably all of next NBA season is played without fans too, at least maybe through the end of this calendar year. So that's kind of tough to arrange the in-person things and maybe schedule some stuff around when Larry's in town. But, a lot of social media promotion, a lot of, just the overall network we're on and trying to use and leverage the good guests that we've had. I mean, we've had a half dozen NBA players. We were only on episode 15 and just kind of big local guys. So 3 of Larry's former teammates have been on. We had Muggsy Bogues to come talk about what it was like to be in Space Jam.
Nice.
Walt Williams is sort of a big local legend because he played at the University of Maryland. So I had Walt on. He played, over a decade in the NBA. Tennis player Francis Tiafoe, has been as high as like 25 in the world. He's a Wizards fan. So we had him on, just trying to get different people, couple writers, different perspectives like that. The NBA, one of the problems for them in the last few years has been, do people even watch games anymore anyway? If you're under a certain age, are you just watching highlights on Twitter? Like, it's just a different world.
It's really tricky. There was one thing where a commissioner was talking about 99-cent games for the fourth quarter because most people just watch the fourth quarter if they watch at all. But my kids were huge Hawks and Warriors fans, and they just watch everything on highlights. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? You got to watch the game.
Right.
This is craziness. Well, is there anything are you still doing the blog? Is there anything you want to talk about, like your blog, or tell people about where they can find the Bleav podcast?
Yeah, sure. So for anybody that reads a decent amount of online sports content, there's one of the bigger platforms is called SB Nation. They have a Washington Wizards specific blog called Bullets Forever, just kind of harkening back to the original name. So I do some writing there. I just did an article the other week about 6 guys, the Wizards should consider signing to add to their roster for the end of the year. But a lot of times it's just sort of, focusing on some stuff we talk about on the show and trying to give it another twist and take on those kinds of things. So, that's kind of the main thing that I do to keep active with the team and just stay involved in sports overall, other than this podcast. So anywhere people get their podcasts, all the good stuff, Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, anything like that. It's BLEAV in Wizards. Again, kind of co-hosted with former Wizard, 13-year NBA veteran Larry Hughes. We've got a bunch of big-time guests lined up for this summer. Probably have his former teammate Gilbert Arenas on in a couple weeks.
Cool.
Try to get some of the Wizards guys, maybe wait until after. It's a long shot that they'll make the actual playoffs. So maybe once they're technically eliminated or something, we can get a couple guys on, talk about what the bubble experience was like. So the running joke for them is that their hotel is called the Yacht Club at Disney. So find out a little bit, what life is like on the Yacht Club and get some insight there.
As far as podcasting and you, this is your first podcast, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have a broadcast journalism degree, so I've done a ton of radio. I hosted my own college radio show back in the day. So I got got a pretty good sense for how to do that, and, all the sound levels and editing and make it sound reasonable. And I worked for ESPN Radio for a while and a couple outlets on radio shows, TV shows, things like that. So first official podcast, but I've kind of been showing up on other people's for the last couple of years.
Right. And have you seen a surge or an increase in the video podcasts as far as the sports stuff? A lot of people, SB Nation, Bleacher Report, NBA.com, they're doing like some sports video podcasts.
Honestly, not as much as you would think. It's some of the bigger outlets. Like I think ESPN's had a lot of spin-off content on YouTube, and they tried to do like a Snapchat thing for a while. I don't know how successful that's been for them. So stuff like that, CBS Sports has been doing a lot of YouTube related content. But as far as, some of the more like website based stuff, I haven't seen that much. And it's kind of interesting to me. I think that would be, an easy way for them to do that. I think maybe that's just, some people prefer that particular medium that may not translate as well. But The Athletic does a lot of, obviously, athletic coverage, and they've had a lot of their writers also sort of do double duty as podcasters. And I think that's sort of, had varying degrees of success for them. But, I haven't seen any video content from them at all either. So it's just kind of, I think sometimes people are sort of slow to realize that that's an option. And for us, it hasn't been. We put all of our podcast as audio files on YouTube. We haven't been posting the live feeds yet, just because, there's every episode there's been some cutout of audio, or somebody's internet goes out for a few minutes.
Yep, that's just part of it. Yeah,
exactly. And I'm just not as skilled a video editor anymore. It's been a decade for me since I've done that kind of stuff. So I'd want to clean ours up a little bit. And there's a good amount of, we goof around for 10 minutes before and after, or talk about next week. And
right.
So it doesn't work as well live for us as it does for you.
So what would you have kind of an interesting kind of advice to give people, because you're part of this network and you're also part of this team. What kind of advice would you give to people who want to be involved in sports podcasts? Would you say go and be a writer first, or what would your advice be?
It's a really good question. I think my first thing would be, don't expect to make a lot of money from it. Sports in general is one of those things where there's so many people that want to do it, that it's a tough one to be profitable in. I think if you're that sort of top 10 percenter, you can make a pretty big living. And, coming out of college, I got offered a job at ESPN Radio, and it would have been, hey, come be the DC, producer for the Mike and Mike show and run it from here and run our local ads. And you'd be here 3:00 in the morning to get ready for the 5 a.m. show and all this stuff. And that was going to pay like $20,000. It's one of those things. So if you want to make freelance money on the back end, you could come work games at night and collect sound at the game. So do you really want to work 24 hours a day just to kind of scrape by and stuff? So it's just, they can always find somebody else that wants to work in sports. So I think my suggestion to a lot of people is have a day job, do something you like to do, and use this as a way to kind of have something you're passionate about. And I've had a couple experiences over the year, which is another reason why I didn't want to do this as a profession, where if you just have a bad experience with somebody that you're a fan of, it makes work tough. And now you've not only hurt your day job, but also your passion and your hobby. So it's just kind of nice to keep those things separate, I think. Yeah.
Well, very cool, Matt. I wish the Wizards the best of luck.
Yeah, actually, we're going to need all the help we can get.
Exactly. So what, there was John Wall, Bradley Beal, and who was the third really good player there? I think he left.
So they had Otto Porter for a while.
Otto Porter. Where did he go?
He got traded to the Chicago Bulls.
Okay. That's right. I remember that. Okay.
Yeah, they offered him a max deal, and that sort of didn't work out for them maybe as well as they would have hoped. I think he was really good in that sort of third wheel route, but didn't have maybe star potential enough to justify a max contract. They already have Beal on a max and Wall's on the whole super max. So if you've got 40 million of your $100 million committed to one player, it's really
That's what
tough
a lot of people
that.
have said. Yeah, is that they have those two guys with a ton of money.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot you can do, especially, and it's been really unfortunate that Wall's been hurt, but yeah, it's tough.
It is what it is. All right, man. Well, you have a great day. Thanks so much for doing this. And I will, yeah.
All right, you too.
Take care, man.
Thanks for listening to the Lights Camera Pro podcast, where entertainment pros talk about how they made their dream into a career.
Go to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and subscribe, rate, and review. Thanks to Bob Juergens for the Rockin' VO and Joseph McDade for the music. Next week, we have a very special guest. It's Shannon McVeigh. She's hilarious. She is the host of Awaken Atlanta. She's got a lot of fans. She's got a lot to say. It's going to be fun. Check it out next week.